All right, guys, it is time to install this super light lithium battery in the Dyna. Yes, this battery, super light. All right, so this battery is not holding a charge very well. Not quite sure how old it is, but if the battery is not really holding a charge, then it's got to go. So we're going to rip this one out, put a lightweight lithium battery in there. We're going to see what the difference is in weight, and we're going to tell y'all all about it. Now, I do currently have one of these lithium batteries in my Road Glide. I used it in the last dyna I had, although I didn't have it that long. In that bike, I do have a story for you with the battery in the Road Glide. We'll keep that to the end. And once we get this wrapped up, I'll tell you one little story I have about the battery. I haven't spent a lot of time with these, but I do have a little bit of experience. This is just a Amazon cheap lithium. I think it's NOCO battery. Probably not the best, but they're pretty cheap for what you get. All right, with the seat off, you can see it's pretty simple. You just have to unhook this guy, disconnect these cables, and pull the battery out. All right, we got our battery right here. Before we get started, let's go weigh this thing. All right, our scale is starting at 0. Let's put the battery on there and one of the little bracket pieces. That's 3 pounds, 13 ounces. So that's just under 4 pounds. That's pretty good. Let's yank this old battery out and see how much. All right, so it's the next day. It started to get pretty dark last night, and I didn't want the video to just get completely terrible. Probably should have just waited till today, but I really wanted to get that battery in, so let's show you what we got. So we got the battery mounted in here. We used the 15mm riser, and then we put a couple of the little foam pieces. They got tape on the back, so it kind of holds her in there pretty good. We put the cables on top because they didn't quite fit around. We probably could have bent them, but that's going to work right there. We do have a battery lead coming. I think it should be here today for the battery tender, and we did take off this little addition right here of this wiring. It goes up here to a USB port that I don't really want on the bike. I think it's kind of ugly, and while I'm sure it can be pretty useful, again, I think it looks like crap, so we're going to take that off. All right, this is the original battery we took out. Well, I'm not going to say original to the bike, but this is the battery that it came with. So we're going to put it on the scale. We have to use a different scale because the little shipping scale I have won't go up that high. Need to order another one, but that's besides the point. So our lightweight lithium battery was just under 4 pounds. It's like 3 pounds, 14 ounces, something like that. We can round it up to 4 pounds, make it easy because it was really close. But let's put this heavy battery on and see what we end up with. 14 pounds. Yeah, there you go. You can see it. So that heavy battery is 14 pounds. The lightweight lithium battery was just under 4, so that's just a tad over 10 pounds lost off this bike. It's not a very high height, it's kind of a low height for the weight, but 10 pounds is still 10 pounds. Would I recommend doing this if you're just like wanting to shave some weight? Probably not. I would wait until your battery kind of gives out on you or gives you a good excuse to get another battery. But 10 pounds is still 10 pounds on a motorcycle. All right, guys, real quick, if you want to check out the shop, wretchedclothing.com, we did release these new flannels. We release one new color a year. This year, we're going green. It's called Wicked Envy. If you're into flannels, check us out. We do snaps. There's a little holder for your sunglasses. And if you want to clean your glasses, there's a nice little glass cleaner right there at the bottom of the flannel. We are limited on some of the sizes. So if you want to get one, the weather's starting to get nice and cool and it's beautiful, grab you a flannel, wretchedclothing.com, and support the channel. All right, now that we've got the battery installed, before we actually hook everything up, turn it on, and make sure it works, I want to tell you the story about the Road Glide I have, and it has one of these batteries in it. So I do have a small issue with the radio. I know that the harness is a little messed up, and it draws a little bit of power. So I have to keep that bike on a battery tender, because if I don't ride it in like 2 or 3 days, the battery is probably pretty low. Also, a caveat to these lithium batteries, they don't like the cold. Now, I live in North Carolina, so it does get cold here. It's not like, you know, one of the more northern states where it's really cold. We can still ride throughout the year, but it does get cold at night. So with these batteries, I would 100% get a battery tender for it and leave it on that tender, especially in the wintertime if you're not going to ride it the very next day. But even if it's getting below 50 in your garage or something, it's better off just plug these things in. So on to the story of the Road Glide. I had the bike plugged in. I did not realize that the outlet, I got one of those ground fault outlets in the garage, it tripped. I know we had some power surges and power outages. I'm guessing it tripped at some point. I had been riding the Dyna, and I hadn't rode the Road Glide in like a week or so, and it was dead. It absolutely nothing, no little flashing light, nothing. The battery, zero. So I was like, okay. I went to plug up the battery tender. Battery tender couldn't find the battery. And you do have to use a special lithium battery tender for them. A cheapo battery tender won't work. It is different. Well, the battery tender couldn't find the battery. And I was like, oh crap. And I haven't had this battery like 6 months. So I took a jump box, hooked up to the bike, and started the bike off. It was a little slow to start, but it started off the jump box, took the jump box off. It was charging 13, 14 volts, kind of up that way. And then I cut the bike off. And when I cut the battery, the jump box off, I was just curious. I was like, okay, now the battery tender cable can find it. It knows it's there. Its nose is hooked up to a battery. When I turned the bike off and turned off the jump box before I unhooked it, it showed like 12 some volts. And I was like, well, that's strange. I only had the bike on for a couple minutes, or not even a couple minutes actually. So I was like, all right, let me try to start the bike. It kind of started a little slow, but it started the bike right up. It was weird. It was like the battery went into like a fail-safe or like sleep mode. I know that there is a like reset on some more expensive lithium batteries. Pretty sure this one does not have that. So some lithium batteries will stop and basically cut itself off from being drained down to zero. So just hooking up a jump box to the bike kind of like woke the battery up. It restarted it. So that was a little strange. I didn't really know anything about it. I just kind of experienced it. So I did want to kind of tell you that story. There is a little bit of caveat to having these batteries, but when you can lose 10 pounds on a replaceable item, especially, you know, you're going to replace it eventually, and they're not that expensive. I mean, I still like to run them. Long term, we'll see what happens, but let's get this bike finished up and start her up. All right, we were disconnecting all of this and wanting to take off this USB off of the, oh, well, that's just a little holder. Okay, so that come right out. But I wanted to take all this off. It had a bunch of tape and zip ties all throughout there. And when I lifted up the tank to get up under here, I guess I should have looked a little better. But right there, that is a battery tender hookup. So I guess this USB is designed to hook up to a battery tender setup, and I didn't need to order that cable. So I guess we're going to take this out, reroute it so I can use it as a battery tender, and hook this back up. All right, we took out the USB setup. Honestly, this probably isn't terrible if you have an early model bagger that doesn't have anything like this and you want to put this up in the fairing somewhere and hide it. That's not too bad. But with this bike, what we usually do on dynas and stuff, I'm going to end up with a different handlebar setup. So we're going to change all this. And then I usually just put one of our bar bags. You can get it at wretchedclothing.com. We put a bar bag here. And then if I need something like that, I'll have a little like charge box. And I'll just run a cable from charge box to a phone mount if I'm using all that. Or I can just throw the phone in the bar bag and charge while it's in there. But yeah, we need to finish this up. Also, we took out the Vance & Hines FP4 because that doesn't need to be in your bike all the time. It was plugged up. It was sitting back here right behind the rear cylinder, which it gets pretty hot back here. There's no reason for it to sit back there. That's kind of dumb, but that's how the guy had it. And we have our battery tender right here, so we'll be able to access it pretty easily, and it's kind of hidden out of the way. All right, battery installed, everything's tight, tank's back on tight, covers on. We did move our battery tender lead up a little bit. Let's see if she fires up. There's only a couple things we could have got wrong, but you know, knowing me, we could have gotten them wrong. We are neutral, so let's see how she does. All right, she fired right up, just like I had hoped and knew she would. I knew we would do this first try. But anyways, that was a pretty decent install. Again, we dropped 10 pounds off of a item that we had to buy anyways, and that lithium battery was probably just, I don't know, 20-30 bucks more than what like a cheap regular lead acid battery we could have bought was. Definitely cheaper than the Harley battery we took out, so a win there. If you do want to check them out, it's on Amazon. It's a NOCO, N-O-C-O battery. We'll probably go through the winter and see how she holds up and see if the battery is worth getting. If you want to get one, like I said, get you a battery tender too. You're going to need to keep this thing plugged up. That way there's no issues because they are way more susceptible to the cold temperatures. So yeah, fair warning, but we got all that squared away, so I'm not really worried about it. But yeah, not too bad. If you made it this far, like that video. I'd greatly appreciate it. If you want to grab some of our stuff, it's starting to get cold, starting to get beautiful. We got a bunch of hoodies, new flannel, and all that good stuff. Wretchedclothing.com. We do have some beanies. But yeah, other than that, I appreciate every single one of you. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. Comment down below, do you think this battery is a good deal? I think it was like 170 bucks. Do you have any of these? Do you have any different ones of these? But as always, keep it wretched.